The Dice Tower is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. This episode is sponsored by the OP, also known as USAopoly.
The Dice Tower, episode 658, Jamaica.
Welcome to The Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them.
In today's show, we talk about some recent games we've been playing, chat about NAP, and we go fully digital in a Game Pie segment talking about board games that we prefer in digital form. I'm Suzanne Sheldon.
And I'm Mandy Hutchinson.
And welcome back to the podcast, everybody. I hope that you are doing well and are healthy. Mandy, it's funny, during work, you send lots of emails back and forth, right? And I noticed that for a while I was sending every email and it always started with some message about wishing people health. And every email I received started off with a message about, I hope you and your family are healthy and things like that. And I thought, I'm just going to assume we're all wishing each other good health now and not lead every email message with the, I hope you're doing well kind of messaging. So now I don't do that anymore.
But I do that anyways.
Assumed.
I did that anyway. I did that before this happened. Yeah, I was always into the, I hope all is well with you and your family. I always started like that. But I also grew up in a house where it was my mom was very strict about, how to talk to people and things like that. So that's always something that I did. But you're right. Now that I'm thinking about it in context, it could come off a little like bad. And I don't want that either.
I don't know if it's bad. It's just, it got a little repetitive. And I think at this point, let's just say the manners are assumed.
Right.
And we can leave the well wishes as unstated in every single email.
That's a fair point.
How have you been spending the last few weeks in quarantine, Mandy?
Well, things are good, Animal Crossing, don't worry, not going to talk about that today. I've also started sewing a dress, yay, and it's coming along very well. Well, the third thing that I'm doing is making me very upset, not like really upset, but Ugh. So I'm playing The Witcher 3. So I think I've mentioned this before. Well, I have gotten to the point where I'm trying to fight a botchling. So for those who play the game will know what I'm talking about. I can't do it. I cannot eradicate the botchling. I'm not going to get into details here because this is a board game podcast, not a video game podcast. All I'm saying is I had to put down the Xbox last night because after 7 or 8 tries of trying to get rid of it, didn't happen. So, yeah. I'm in a state today, so
that can be super duper frustrating.
It is. Good, but frustrating. What about you?
Well, you've been sewing a dress. I don't think I've ever sewn garments that kind of style, but I've been sewing masks.
Oh,
right?
That's nice.
Yeah, it's something to do. I happen to have a collection of fabric just sitting in my house, and why not take advantage of that and do something kind of productive and helpful? So I've been sewing as well. It's just not as cute as your dresses. Although the masks I'm making are super duper cute because I have cute fabric. So there
I know.
you go.
I have some set aside. I feel like I need to start doing that too. Hand them around my neighborhood. I think they would like that.
If you have the means and the time and the skill set, why not, right?
Yeah, exactly.
How has all of your gaming been going? It's interesting. In the industry, there's a lot of discussion about retail and how the quarantine's impacted sales and things like that. Whereas big box stores like Target and Walmart, they're actually reporting a significant increase in board game sales.
Really?
Because of this. Yes.
Wow.
So it's a tough thing because we see a lot of small, friendly local game stores that are so wonderful. They're struggling. In fact, I just saw some messages go through my social media feed about one of the best local game stores in Japan.
Wow.
Is struggling, and they're asking their customer base for some financial support right now to help them survive their shutdown over in Japan. So this is definitely not an isolated situation. This is a global struggle for the industry. But I think it's interesting that while local game stores have had to close and don't have the distribution network available to them to get games out there, the big box stores that do have online sales and pick up and all this other stuff, people want those board games. People are really sinking into them, which feels like an opportunity with the worst possible circumstances for all of us that love board games so much already.
I'd be curious to know the stats if it's, because in Canada, our Walmart does not carry the same games as some of yours potentially. Like we don't have access with those big box stores to some of the games that you would find in yours. So I'd be curious to see the stats if it's North America. But I mean, overall, it's sad, right? Because these small stores are not getting that traffic anymore. And, and unfortunately for some people that it means closing, and that's not what we want to see.
Not by any means.
Exactly.
And I try to manage my budget. I'm pretty careful about how I spend money in general. But of course, I always have some money to buy games. And since I'm not really able to go to my local game store right now, Kickstarter is causing me some trouble, Mandy.
Oh, you and me both. I said I wasn't going to be on Kickstarter. I was off it for a while. Well, that went down the drain.
All right. So I backed Pulp Invasion, which is another in Alban Viard and Todd Sanders' solo gaming series that kind of has that retro pulp style art that I just love.
So good. I love it.
I couldn't resist that. And Mini Express.
Oh, yeah, I backed that one too.
Right? Because Mini Rails is so good. And that's from Mo Ideas. And how could you not? I love almost every game they've ever published. And Mini Rails is such a great game. I know this isn't the same game by any means, but it really looks like they've put a lot of effort to up-level their production and kind of some of the component qualities and things like that in Mini Express. So you backed it too, huh?
I did. It's all, yeah, definitely. That was an all. As soon as I saw it, back, insta-back. So
what else have you backed?
Oh, well, I had to do this one, Dale of Merchants 3.
Oh, that's such a cool series.
It's so good. I mean, it's a card game, but the art is adorable, like with the little animals, and you get to, choose which ones you want to play with in the game, and that kind of affects the gameplay. So I really like that a lot. I only have Dale of Merchants 2 and the Eurasian Beaver expansion, which I'm convinced is Canadian because he wears red plaid, but that's a whole other issue. So I've been told otherwise. But anyway, I want to get the box set. So it has... I could add Dale of Merchants, the original. I could add 3, which is the one on Kickstarter now. And it comes in a box, so I could put everything in the box because I don't need number 2. And there are mats. So I may actually have to spring for the mats as well. Ooh.
If you like a game a lot, then investing in some little extras that make the gameplay experience more pleasant or enjoyable, that's a nice way to kind of enhance. I'd say go for it.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, Mandy, you and I had talked about this a little while ago. Did you end up backing Canvas? Because I backed Canvas.
Oh, it's on my list. So it's like the
You're on
fingers
the fence?
there. Like, no, it looks really good, and I want to back it. But I'm looking at like the financials, and I'm like, should I be backing it? But I probably will. But I usually wait till I get that. There are 48 hours left in this Kickstarter, and that's when I usually.
Oh, those deadly reminders.
Right.
So how about you all out there? What are you backing on Kickstarter? Are you backing? Like, have you just stopped? Or are you like Mandy and I and kind of leveraging Kickstarter as a way to kind of get our shopping in for games, even if it's delayed gratification? Send us emails or messages on social media because I want to know, make sure I didn't miss anything super cool, right? That's always the thing with Kickstarter. You hate to miss something super awesome.
Absolutely.
So let us know what you're backing. But enough chitter chatter, Mandy. We've been playing games. We've been creative on how we've been getting lots of games played over the past couple weeks. So
yes,
let's talk about them.
So, what have you been playing lately?
All right, game time. I have been actually able to play a lot of games online, but these are games I'm going to talk about today that I've actually played in the physical form and then played again online just to, solidify my understanding of the game.
It's cool to have that comparison.
Yeah. I'm going to start off with Paladins of the West Kingdom. Dun da da! Designed by Shem Phillips and S.J. McDonald. Art is by Mihajlo Dmitrievsky. Published by Garfield Games and Renegade Game Studios. It plays 1 to 4. And it plays in 90 to 120 minutes. Price is about $50 to $95 Canadian, $40 US. For those listening, if this is the first time listening, these prices I take from the Canadian website Board Game Bliss and the American website Cool Stuff Inc. So this is a card drafting, worker placement. There's like a market in this game as well. All right, so Paladins of the West Kingdom, it's part of a set. They have like a kind of a set of games. Architects is another one that they had. And I'm taking this directly from what they're describing. It's set at a turbulent time of West Francia's story circa 900 AD, so way back in the day. The objective of the game is, obviously, to get the most victory points. And how do you do that? I will quickly explain. So before I start, there's a lot happening in this game, okay? So you have your own board, which is where majority of your actions are going to happen. And this is where you're going to be able to block off spaces to make things a bit easier to afford. Overall, this is where your actions are going to happen, getting money, building things out. Then they have the main board, which is another place that you can place some of your meeples on the board to take some actions. We also have another kind of area, which is going to be kind of your marketplace where you can grab characters to have special abilities to help you out in the game. And, that's also where we're going to keep track of the rounds. So there are cards that we're going to flip every round to let us know, okay, great. This is something towards the end of the game that we need to work toward. Additionally, we have other cards there that are not so good. And that's what is it called? An Inquisition? Something along those lines. I could be wrong on that, but something happens where if certain money is removed out of a certain spot in the game, because some cards will say you have to take money from a certain area on the game board, it will cause that to happen. And anybody with those bad cards, because they decided to take purple meeples, not so good for you. Okay. And these can be negative points at the end of the game. So jumping back a little bit, there are several actions in the game: developing, hunting and trading, recruiting, praying, conspiring, fortifying, absolving, tons more. But this is where you're basically taking meeples from your supply and putting them on your board. And how do you get those meeples? It's a card that there's cards that are turned over that will have a grouping of meeples on them, and you will be able to decide which one you want. Now, obviously in turn order, and different meeples give you different things because some spots on your board require a specific colored meeple. So you may need that card that has the white, the black, the green meeple on it. If it has a purple, like I said before, it's a wild, but you may have there's a card that comes with it, and it's not always positive. Okay, so it gives you potentially money, but it comes from that pod I was telling you about that can trigger something bad if it is emptied. You also have your own deck of cards where you are going to choose 3 of them. One of them is going to be the one you play. One goes on top of your deck, one goes under the deck. And these cards that are played out are also going to give you some abilities. So potentially things are cheaper, you get more bonuses of something. And it also raises your level of, and I don't know the technical term of it, but we have different kind of flags on our side of the board. Red, blue, and black, I think, are the colors. And you want to push these up because you require certain levels of these to do certain actions on the board. Additionally, they give you lots of points at the end of the game. Hopefully that hasn't thoroughly confused you, but given you an idea of what we're playing with here. So the game ends after 7 rounds, and you can count this out by the cards that come out that are flipped every round. You can count those at the end of 7 rounds. Game is over. Most points wins. I hope that was enough to give you an idea of the game. Suzanne can jump in if she wants to add anything else to what I've said.
No, I think it is, on BGG, it's rated like a 3.58 in the weight rating, which is pretty significant. It's got, as you said, it's just got a lot going on. So I think that was a really solid summary for such a big game.
Yeah, so if you want to know more, definitely give it a go. It's on Tabletopia, which is where I finished playing it off. But yeah, it's a lot. So overall, I'm just going to start with this. I really liked this game. Now, I haven't reviewed Architects yet. This will be my next one. I just have to play it again. I'll throw it out there. I liked this better than Architects. Doesn't mean I disliked Architects. I just like this one better. Now, it is a weightier game, which people know that's definitely in my wheelhouse. I really, really liked the card selection, where you kind of had that card that you could play. One, you know what's coming up next, and one's on the bottom. You might not get to that one. So I just liked that kind of decision-making with it. The rules are a lot to internalize, especially at first, and it's a game where it's like, oh my goodness, like this, the explanation could take you a good half an hour or longer, sure, depending, right? Because you actually have to go through things to understand the way the game plays. On the good side of that, you can take different strategies in this game. Once you kind of get those rules internalized and you play, you can take different paths. You can decide, I'm going to really push that fortification, building those walls and getting those bonuses. Or I'm going to really recruit lots of people and get those bonuses. So I like the fact that you can kind of branch off and take a different way of playing the game. You do get a bit of player interaction in the game. I wouldn't say it's a ton, but there are spots on the board where you do have to pay attention to what people are doing, like that market. Oh, they took that card. You really have to pay attention to what people are doing. So in that sense, there's a little bit of player interaction. If anyone suffers from AP, yeah, this could be a problem in this game because the game is already long. It says it plays in 120 minutes. That's a lie. Sorry, I just banged my table. It's a long game. Doesn't mean I dislike it. I actually don't really notice the time, but it is. Like, it can run you 3 hours, especially in your first play. And if people have a lot of time to think about things because they're not sure, AP can be a real issue. But if you play it with people who have played it before and you're comfortable, definitely can be played in a faster time period. Whew, that was a lot. So overall, really liked it. What about you, Suze?
I have to totally agree with a lot of what you said. I will just say it up front. I am not the biggest fan of the West Kingdom series of games. Mm-hmm. I enjoy some more than others. I've had my frustrations. I think looking way back, we actually talked about Raiders, and I had some really big frustrations with how some of that worked, which was too bad because I really liked the basic worker placement mechanism in that game and that kind of thing. And so I haven't loved any of the series. Just to be honest.
No, I'm kind of with you in that realm.
But I really also enjoyed Paladins, and it is 100% my favorite in the series, and it is the only one I'm keeping in my collection at this point.
It's really good.
I love... so again, in every one of these games, there's a mechanism, at least something that I do really, really like. It's just in Paladins, I like how everything comes together, and I like the crunchiness of it. I like the planning. I like the way opponents can thwart your plans and how you have to work around that. But that card play where you get your cards and then you decide which one am I going to keep, which one am I prepping for next turn, and which one am I not going to see for a while, I love that mechanism so much. It works very, very well in this game. It makes me feel smart when it works. I just feel so clever sometimes, especially when you're going through it and you get the card that you buried and you're thinking, that's right, I put this card down here and now it's better time because my scenario is better suited for what this card does now. I love that mechanism so much, but that wouldn't hold up the whole game for me. It's just how all the pieces come together. It's definitely a little weightier. I've experienced the same thing, Mandy, that you have where the playtime is definitely on the higher end.
Yeah.
Which is more about expectations and sorting your time out than anything else. I don't mind the length. I just don't want to go in thinking, oh, I've got 90 minutes. I'm going to crank out a game.
Exactly.
Right. But yeah, so Paladins of the West Kingdom, I'm really glad you enjoyed it. I think that it's on Tabletopia or something, isn't it?
It is. It's on Tabletopia. That's where I've played it.
Mandy, let's play a game of Paladins together. That would be so much fun.
I didn't even think about that. That would be a good one. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I don't play solo, but my friend Ashley, if you're listening, she's like my expert when it comes to solo. She said this is very good solo. So that's as much as I can tell you about it. But apparently if you play solo, this might be a game for you.
Which is interesting. That might go into a discussion that we're having later on in the show about games that we prefer in digital mode.
Right.
I would be interested in exploring Paladins in solo mode, and I've never tried it in solo mode, so let me be very, very clear. I'm making a presumptive judgment here.
Sure.
There's just a lot of setup. That would be a lot of setup to do. I'd have to look into that. Anyway. Well, next up is kind of a unique beast of a game called Four Senses. This is published by Helvetique, and we've talked about Helvetique games on the podcast before. Kariba and these little box games, Winston, little box games that are quite clever and quite enjoyable and kind of very family friendly. It's a great publisher that I'm glad to see is becoming more and more available in the United States. Well, Four Senses veers away from that small box format. It's a slightly larger box. This is designed by Mitsuo Yamamoto, and it's really a two-player game. They have three-player rules, but I really only suggest it 2 players. It's essentially an abstract game. It's basically a game where you have some wooden discs and you have a board with some recesses where those discs sink into, they fit into it. And ultimately your goal in the game is pretty much just get 4 in a row of the discs that share a characteristic. But four senses. But the human body typically is assumed to have five. That's because you play this game blindfolded.
Oh, my.
Yep. It is a game. It includes blindfolds for the players. I know that it's same with nyctophobia. When that game came out, there was some sensitivities by some people for wearing masks when they play. The rule book accommodates that. They say, hey, if you don't want to cover up with the masks, just throw like a napkin or a large handkerchief over the board in your hands as you're playing instead of covering your head. For us, when we play, we just close our eyes and don't cheat. Don't be a cheater, you know? It's that simple. So here's the deal with four senses. Basically, you've got a board. It's a gridded board, and it's got these little holes punched into it where you drop these discs. Discs can be 1 layer thick or 2 layer thick, and some have holes and some are solid. On your turn, all you're going to do is, again, blindfolded, you're going to pick up one of the discs. You kind of know where they are. You know what disc you're getting. You get to pick, and you drop it in one of the holes. You win the game when you complete a row of 4 discs in a row that share characteristics. So 4 in a row that have a little hole in the middle, or 4 in a row that are solid, 4 in a row that are at the same level. Because remember I said some are 1 disc thick and some are 2 discs thick. So you play with that height. The other way that you can win is by completing 3 in a row that step up. So go from 1 to 2 to 3 high in their little wells. And you're doing all of this through touch. You're feeling the pieces. You're feeling where, this is a thin piece. Okay, this is a thin solid piece. This is a thin piece with a hole in it. Okay, then you're feeling the board. Ooh, okay, I can feel that it's flat over here, so that one's full. Oh, over here, I can feel there's 2 in a row with a hole in it. Oh, there's a gap there. I could do that. It's obviously incredibly tactile. And they say in the rulebook, it's really a game designed to give no advantage to somebody who's sighted over somebody who is non-sighted. That said, I would imagine somebody who is visually impaired for a long period of time would have an advantage because they're more used to operating in the world without the sense of sight.
Exactly.
Which is totally fine because, hey, 2 games out of thousands that accommodate blind or visually impaired players, I think that sounds more than fair.
Absolutely.
But it is ultimately kind of a quote-unquote Connect 4 style game, all played through touch. It's a solid game. Now, my kids like it. I have found when they put the blindfolds on, remember my kids are fairly young, they're 8 and 11, especially my 8-year-old. When they put the blindfold on, they get a little goofy. Like they think it's silly and fun to have the blindfold on. And then they're a little, especially the 8-year-old again, their fine motor control is decent, but not perfect. So sometimes they're knocking pieces off the table as they're reaching for them, that kind of thing. None of that's a blocker. They enjoy the game, but I found ultimately I kind of said, okay, we're not going to play with the blindfolds. Even though he doesn't mind it, I'm like, we're not going to put the blindfold on you because you're just getting too goofy. But that's neither here nor there, really. Four senses, I like it. I like abstract games in general. I like games that are unique. We've talked about this before. We play a lot of games. I've played a lot of games in my life. Throw a hook. Give me something different. Put something unique in the game to latch on to. And Four Senses absolutely does that. It's a decent abstract game. The hook of not being able to see the pieces that you're doing really, really works. In many ways, it's kind of the anti-COVID-19 game, Mandy.
Oh,
you have to play in person.
Yeah.
You have to touch things, right? So I think that's the other element. Make sure you've washed your hands and are hand sanitizing after you play.
Yes.
But really, Four Senses, an enjoyable, fascinating, unique, abstract game that I've really enjoyed.
Is this is this new for them? I've not heard of it. I know I've seen the collection of their games, but is this one that's newer, or maybe it's just one is it in a different box? Because a lot of them come in the smaller box.
Yeah, this is definitely a bigger box. It's probably about 4 times the small box size, and it's probably a couple years old, actually. It's not new, but this is the first time I've gotten to talk about it.
Oh, exciting. So the next game I'm going to talk about, and you'll notice there seems to be a theme going on with my games. It's a lot of talking on my end today.
You're doing just fine.
Okay, thanks. On the Underground, London and Berlin, I am only going to be talking about the London board, because that's the only one I was able to play, unfortunately. Designed by Sebastian Bleasdale, art is by Victor Setti, and published by Ludi Creations. Plays 2 to 5 players in about 45 to 60 minutes. It retails for about $53 for the standard version and $66 for the deluxe. In Canadian dollars, I'm assuming it's close to that in US. I just wasn't able to get a price. So this game has, action points, network and route building. I was about to say route building. This is how I normally say it, but network and route building. Sorry, that sounds really weird. Sorry. Network and route building and point-to-point movement. Sorry, that took way longer than it needed to. Okay. So on the Underground, players are building underground lines, and in this case, in London. Each player is going to control their 2 to 4 different lines, and this is dependent on how many people are playing. Because if you're playing with less people, you're going to get more lines or kind of tracks that you can put out. So different colors. In the game, you're going to have 4 actions on your turn. When it starts off on a turn, the first turn is going to be differing amounts of actions, and then it'll taper off on the next round. So everyone has 4 actions on their turn. What ends up happening first is 4 destination cards are flipped, and you have express stations and you have standard stations. So express stations are yellow cards and standard are the white cards, or gray. It's hard to see on the screen. And we have these little pillars that are kind of put out on those locations. And what you're going to eventually want to do is you want to make your passengers happy, and they don't want to walk to these stations. They want to get there as efficiently as possible. So it is up to you to create very nice, speedy rails on the map. And, well, you want them to use your rails or your tracks to get to where they're going, because that gets you points. That's just one of the ways that you can get points, is by the passenger moving along your rails. So backtrack a little bit. We flipped out our cards. We put the stations out. Now it's your turn. What do you do? Well, I think for an action, I'm going to put out a rail. So I'm going to put out one of my tracks, onto the board. And there are different areas around the board. And depending where you place, can definitely get you points. If you kind of encompass an area, fully close it with one color of track, all the stations within that will give you points. So that's something to consider. We also have these little tokens on the board. If you make a rail line going to both of the same tokens, like so 2 of the tree tokens, that's going to give you 3 points. Now, that's obviously a good way to do it. We also have these external stations on the end. I don't remember the exact name of it. They're just kind of like red splotches on the map. We're just going to go with that technical term, and those also give you points. Keep in mind, when you start branching the same color lines, that costs you actions, right? Because you need these kind of branch tokens to allow you to do that. So putting out a track, that's 1. Putting out another, that's 2. Maybe I'm getting a branch token, that's 3. These are the types of actions that you can take on your turn. And then after that, what you do is you move the passenger to the station, starting by them going to an express station, which is a yellow station. Once they've reached that, they have to take the most efficient way to get there, count up the points, give the players, whoever's was used, their system, and then you want that passenger to go to a standard station, which is one of the gray ones. Once that's happened, you score all the points for that as well, and then new cards are going to come out. If it's just a row of gray cards, well, they're only going to one station. If it's all yellow cards, they're only going to one station. It's only when you have the mix that they go to several. After all the destination cards have been drawn, all players basically are going to take the same number of turns. The game is going to end. So that's how you know when game's over. Oh, draw pile's empty. Game's ending soon. Okay, I feel like I'm starting off with this a lot. I liked this game a lot. There you go. I first played it at AirCon, but I had actually accidentally backed it. That's a long story. Let's not get into
You
it.
accidentally backed it. I love it.
But it was a happy little accident. So it
There you
worked
go.
out.
Okay, Bob Ross.
Right, I know. Yeah, you caught that. The rules are simple, easy to understand, I thought, for the most part. And Suzanne and I have played this together online. I've also played the physical copy at AirCon. I do find this can be lengthy. It says 45 minutes-ish. Yeah, I disagree. Depending on the way the cards come out, especially if you're getting just tableaus of all gray cards or tableaus of all yellow cards, you can only move the passenger once on that player's turn, versus if you get the mix, you're moving the passenger twice, therefore kind of moving through the cards a bit faster. So that might be faster when you get to know the game better, but for the first couple of games, not I wouldn't say it's short. I liked us working together. I know this is silly. Try to count, like, what's the most, speedy way of trying to get that passenger to the station. And of course you want them to use your lines, but, you play with friends. You're like, actually, no, this is the fastest way to go. And you're going to get the points, even though I'd really like it on my line. So I like these conversations that happen. Makes me happy. I also like on the map, they have letters and numbers, which correspond to the card. So if you're looking for a specific location, you can just say, Alpha 2 or A2. Sorry, I work with the military. And then you know that, oh, it's going to be in that area on the board. So that I really appreciated because I don't know London that well. So it's really good. So yeah, that's exactly where it is. Easy to find. Lots of ways to get points, as I've mentioned. And I like that kind of light tension in the game where, oops, did I block you? I think this might have happened to Suzanne in our game.
Yeah.
Blame Ashley.
Vandy. Yeah.
And, that's kind of, it's not like, oh, I hate you, I'm going to get back at you. That's the game, right? You're trying to put yourself in a place where the passenger's going to want to use your line most of the time. Overall, I really liked it. Suze, what about you?
This is another game that I agree. I like the game a lot. It's interesting, actually, to hear you say that you like the engagement and the dialogue around counting the spaces. That is the thing about the game I dislike.
Really?
Yeah.
I liked it.
It bogs it down. And when you talk about, hey, this game is going to take a little longer.
Yeah.
Well, how much time, I think if you were to go back and count minutes, and I've played this in physical form as well, how much time is spent counting those routes? Ooh, okay, well, they were going to take this path, or they could take this path. If they take this path, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, if they take this path, they skip that one, it's 1, 2. Oh, but it's 2 different rail lines here. Okay, well, wait, what was the first one again? That conversation happens a lot during the game.
It does.
Well, it's definitely nice, and certainly when you and I got to play together and with Ashley, we did that collaboratively, and it was, I get that the discussion and the dialogue and the teamwork on that front was pleasant, but for me, I wish it was simpler. I don't see a simple way in physical form to ever make that simpler. It's just part of the game.
Yeah.
But it does bog it down slightly for me. Mm-hmm. All of that said, I love the routing. I think it's interesting how the different stations move around. I think the logic of how the passenger travels actually works and makes sense once you get into the groove. I think that it is interesting that you can gain points in a myriad of different ways. And I really like that I think you can win by following different avenues.
Absolutely.
And different perspectives. Are you going to put all of your rail in one color out first? Or are you going to diversify and spread out? Are you trying to connect points? Or are you trying to get to those red blotches? Are you trying to get branch tokens? All that kind of thing. And I think that there's some nice balance in the game overall between those strategies. And I really like that. On the Underground, for me, is definitely a winner. I really actually do like the game. It does have that not insignificant frustration point for me in terms of counting the rails.
Sure.
But no matter how annoying I find that, it doesn't detract from the game enough for me to say I dislike the game or wouldn't play it. I like this game a lot. I would love to play it again. It's definitely a keeper from my perspective on that front. And Mandy, I had a great time playing with you.
Yes, thank you. I did. I'm sorry that you had a few blockages there. Not my fault. But
I mean, it was completely your fault.
What?
Unbelievable. Don't. Oh my gosh. Are you really going to go?
I'm having memories of Cupcake Empire, but you'll have to go back and listen to that podcast.
Oh, you're metagaming me now from a game from like 2 years ago? You're reaping revenge from 2 years ago?
Sorry.
Oh, boy.
Before we jump into your next game, I forgot to mention that on the Underground, this isn't a new game. This existed before. I don't remember how long ago it was, 2006, around there?
Oh, yeah, right. The edition that we've been playing is the newer
newer version. And yeah, so the coloring and everything is a
pretty.
bit different. It's very pretty, this one. I love the pinks and whatnot. And there are a listing of differences. So I have not played the original one, so I couldn't possibly go through all of them. But I know for a fact BGG has a listing of all the differences in the game. Like, for example, the passenger, I think, leaves the map in the old version, but doesn't in this version. Things like that. So there are slight changes, but I think for the best from what I've been told.
Yeah, in fact, it was a Kickstarter. And one of the funniest things about the Kickstarter is that some of the stretch goals were different meeples to represent the passenger. Well, you really only have one passenger on the board. So adding all these different meeples was just a cosmetic thing. Nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. This is not a complaint. It's more of a note of amusement because it's like, okay, do I want the little stooped old person with a cane meeple running around London? Or do I want the pregnant woman meeple running around London? It's just the diversity. There's a clear one. Like, the diversity of the meeples that you can get if you back this on Kickstarter is hilarious to me.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Up next was a game as soon as I saw it existed, I did not rest until I got a hold of a copy because good golly, Miss Molly, could they have made a game more targeted to me? I don't think so. This is Piece of Pie.
Oh my goodness.
Piece of Pie! They made a game called Piece of Pie! Ah! So excited. And it's adorable. And you look at the box, and the box looks like a pastry box, like a pie box that you would get at the store, the bakery. And then
cute.
you look into it, and you can clearly see the game pieces are like a little pie in the window of the box. It's, So, Piece
how
of
you really
Pies
feel.
is actually a very light drafting game designed by Trevor Benjamin and Brett J. Gilbert, and it's published by Blue Orange Games. Anybody who plays this game, every other reviewer or podcaster that talks about it in the future is going to make this comparison, so I'll just get it out there. You're going to think of Sushi Go, right?
Oh.
Because it's a drafting game, and it has variable scoring. It's got this very family-friendly, adorable food theme. Those similarities are just going to be called out. I'll just put it out front and get it out of the way. But in Piece of Pie, you don't have cards. You have little cardboard pie wedges. So the components of the game are little wedges of pie. There's blueberry and strawberry and kiwi and peach, and they've got frosting or pie crust shapes or chocolate shavings on them. And they get shuffled up, and they get arranged into random pies in the middle of the table. And you are basically going to be drafting from those pies to create your own pie in front of yourself. And golly gee, how much do I just love that.
Of course.
Of course. And they're very nice. They're actually kind of small. So if you've played New York Slice, you know New York Slice has kind of giant pizza wedges.
Yeah, they're big.
These are much, much smaller than that. They're not teeny tiny. They're a nice size. And quite frankly, they're a nice size for kids, which kids have to come into play in a game like this.
Sure.
So the random pies get selected out. You pick a piece. You put it in front of you. Once you start your pie, you can build only on any other side. You can't go randomly. You have to kind of build the circle out as you go. There are 2 scoring cards out. There's a recipe card and an ingredient card that you're working towards scoring. And you get a personal secret perfect slice card that is kind of your special pie type that at the end of the game, you'll score points if you've gotten those types of slices in your personal pie. And it's honestly that simple. So recipe cards will just give you different scoring attributes based on what kinds of flavors you have or their positions. And ingredient cards are much more positionally oriented where, hey, you have to have a peach wedge in between 2 blueberry wedges next to a kiwi wedge. That kind of thing. So you draft your pie. You get this cute little pie in front of you. You score based on your perfect pie slice, the recipe and the ingredient card that's been laid out randomly at the beginning of the game. High score wins. And it's dead simple. Dead simple game. Or that's what you think.
Oh.
So, Piece of Pie, I very much like this game. Of course, the theme is going to push it over the edge for me. I just adore the production. And of course, I love making pie in a game. The scoring cards are interesting because they can be kind of complex. The way this works is there's a stack of recipe cards and a stack of ingredient cards. You shuffle them up and you just draw one of each for the game. You are only scoring off of 2 cards. But some of those ingredient cards are quite complex. Like there's one where it's, okay, you have to have a peach slice, and then the next 2 slices around it can be anything, and then the next 2 slices must be blueberry.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a very specific kind of scoring thing that then meanwhile you're also kind of thinking through whatever random recipe card came out. And then there's general scoring. So like the frosting things, if you get 2 together, they score points. The crust bits that are on there, if you get 1 of each type in your pie, you score points, that kind of thing. But I think some of the scoring cards, so just flat out, that it was too much for my 8-year-old. Some of the more complex ones, he just forgot about them.
Yeah.
Or like there was nuance to it. He couldn't see how to piece them together, no pun intended, of, okay, how can I try to score recipe and ingredients? He could really only focus on one at a time because it's beyond, some of them are beyond, hey, have a blueberry slice next to a peach slice. It's got this kind of weird if-then conditioning on a single scoring card that I think was too much for my 8-year-old. Take that for what you will. So overall, Piece of Pie is actually a hit for me. I love it. The production is great. The gameplay and rules are quite simple and straightforward, easy and quick to play, easy and quick to teach. I would just nerf it a little bit and be a little more selective on some of the scoring cards depending on the age range that you're playing with.
Right.
But certainly with adults, it's going to get more interesting because that more complex scoring actually makes it more interesting for complex thinkers. And you can actually get hung up going through the prioritization and min-maxing of you can't make this recipe and this ingredient work together, so which one's going to score you more points kind of thing. It's an interesting thing for such a lightweight game, which, quite frankly, if you know Trevor Benjamin and Brett J. Gilbert's work, that's not surprising. They're very talented, skilled designers coming up with straightforward games that have a little bit of tooth to them, and Piece of Pie fits right into that family.
I feel like there's potential like variations or expansions that could happen here, like the
Oh gosh, I hope so.
Like the butter or Crisco crust expansion.
Well, that's ridiculous because butter in the crust is the right answer.
Okay, let's not go there because I've done it both ways. I even mix them up a little bit. It doesn't have to be all butter to be delicious and flaky. But I digress. I had potentially another one, the cheese or whipped cream topping expansion. My goodness, I have so many ideas. Anyway, you've got me talking about food now because it sounds so delicious. I might have to try this out. All right, the last game, it's going to be an interesting one. I'm going to talk about Vindication, designed by Mark Nadlinger. Art is by Noah Adelman, Brett Carville, Emiliano Cardoba, and Bartek Fediashak. It's published by Orange Nebula. It's for 2 to 5 players and plays in about 45 to 150 minutes. Price point on this is about 110 Canadian, but I think that might be the deluxe version. So this game, I got to read this just because this is the description and I thought it was pretty funny. Not funny, haha, but like, So thrown overboard for a life of wretchedness, you wash ashore a hostile island ruins, completely alone, with nothing except the breath in your lungs and an undaunted spirit. I'm sorry, I just was dying to read it like that.
Such drama.
Right? It's all these RPGs I've been doing. So in the game, basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to get companions for your party, acquire relics, gain character traits, and, well, always defeating a good monster is, it's a good thing. Heroic attributes and things like that in order to regain honor and, well, you hope, cross your fingers, to be vindicated by the end of the game. The game, it's a lot to take in at first, okay? Because you have a main board, which has a tiling kind of area where you're going to be putting tiles out. And these are where you're going to be able to take your actions. That's the main part of the board. And then around that, there are different areas of the board that you'll see different kind of bowls. And you're also going to see cards. And remember how I mentioned relics and monsters and things like that? They each have their own set of cards. Can't think off the top of my head of how many there are, but 5, 6 in that range around the board. And I think they have companions, monsters, relics, traits, etc. And there's different types of traits. Then you have your own board, which is going to have 3 bowls. And I believe the first bowl that you have on there is potential. And then the middle board, I think, is influence. And the last bowl starts with a C. It's
conviction.
Yo, look at that conviction. Thank you. Come on. For my memory, that's pretty good. So you start with cubes in each of these bowls. And ideally, you want to try and move them over to either influence or conviction area because that's when you can actually deploy them or use them on the board or cards that you have. You have 3 actions on your turn. Okay, these are ones that you have to do. So moving is one. So remember I told you about that board with the tiles on it? That's where you want to move in order to go to a tile to get some actions. And you draw a tile out when you're, close to an empty area. And this is bringing out more actions on the board till eventually it will be full. So important to move. And in moving on the board, you have options of visiting a tile, which allows you to take that action, or potentially controlling that tile, which will generate points for you during the game if other players visit that tile. But they could also take that tile over, so gotta watch out for that. We also have other actions of, cards that you've acquired throughout the game, quote unquote, activating those cards to take their abilities, and it allows you to get cubes of a specific trait. So for example, you may have a card that has the symbol for knowledge, okay, which are like the blue area is what we're going to call it, but knowledge. And this allows you to get 2 of your cubes from your influence area and put those on the board in the knowledge area. This is important because all of the kind of main traits on the board are going to be primary colors, and the other kind of traits and relics and other things are going to be secondary colors. I know, someone with colors, this just appealed to me so much here. But basically, by taking those primary colors, you can mix them to make a secondary. This makes no sense what I'm talking to you about because you're not seeing it physically, but in order to get those bowls with your cubes, for example, relics, which are purple, We need to mix what colors now? That's right, red and blue. These are things we want to do to get those colors. I digress. I'm just going on to colors. I need to stop. Something to note in the game is that the end of game triggers, you start off with, I think it's a couple, depending on, I think how many players, but 2 usually come out. These can increase. You can have other game triggers that happen depending on each kind of interval of points that you hit on the board. So I think if you hit like 35 points, another one comes out. If you hit like 45, another one comes out, or something to that effect. But you could have several things that will trigger the end of the game. Otherwise, this game would just go on forever. So those are important to take note of. You also have areas where you want to have majority of having a certain amount of cards because you could win more points at the end of the game. Okay, so it's something else that you also want to consider. You also want to consider being vindicated, getting all that potential out of that bowl moved over into influence or conviction. Oh, look at that. Vindication gives you points, right? And better ways of getting materials for you to complete certain things. So the game ends when one of those cards are triggered, and I believe it is equal number of turns.
Right.
All right. Whew, that was a lot. I'm all hot here. So I don't know why I got all hot doing that one. I liked it. So okay, let's be clear here. The first time I played it, I didn't dislike it. I just didn't know what to think about it. Like, I wasn't understanding the theme, I don't think, at first. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're a wretched scumbag that wants to be vindicated. I'm like, okay, I got that part of it. But I didn't really understand some of the other elements and how it tied in. Like, I work with color, so I understood the whole color theory part of it. But then I'm like, but how does that tie into the actual game? And I don't know if it does. Maybe I'm missing something.
Sure.
So there were just a lot of unknowns for me. I was like, I don't know how I feel about it. After the second and third and fourth play, then I was like, no, I really like where this is going because I was understanding the game better. Does it mean I understand it 100% what they were going with the theme? No. But I have a better sense of the game. So in that sense, I liked where it was going, and I've played it with a lot of people, Suzanne included, and we've all enjoyed it. Suzanne will give you her own thoughts on it. I think the game is meant to have like an open sandbox feel to it because I know I was looking up some clarifications on rules and it was like kind of like whatever you think it should be. And I was like, really? And for me, I feel weird about stuff like that. I do like parameters that I have to work within. I find if you leave it too open, certain games can just lead down a very, very bad path. And so for me, I like that, a little bit of restriction. Some people might like this kind of sandbox feel to it. That's okay. I don't know if it's for me necessarily, but it didn't affect my how I felt about the game. So that kind of leads me into the rules were a little unclear with certain things at times, but again, it maybe was meant to be like that, to be kind of like an open to interpretation. It scales well. I've played it with a few different counts, and overall I found it scales well with different amount of players. And lastly, quick setup because it is organized right outside of the box. So I have played the physical copy, I own it, and played it online. It's organized. So when you pull it out, like you have little trays with like all your stuff in it, everything's organized. Beautiful. I love organization in games. That to me was like, oh yes, A+. So easy setup is basically where it's going, and then easy to put everything away. So yeah, Vindication for me was a winner. I was vindicated. Well, in the last game anyway. What about you, Suzanne? What do you think about it?
Yeah, it's an interesting game, and ultimately, being the Euro lover that I am, theme shmeem. I appreciate that you were seeking out the theme, but ultimately what it is a highly produced cube pushing Euro style game to me.
Yeah.
Right? It's all about just cube exchange or resource exchange, and literally all the resources are represented by cubes. It's literally a cube pusher. The art is great. The physical copy, and I also have a physical copy, the production of it is incredibly high quality. It's funny, Noah Adelman's listed as a artist on the game, but Noah Adelman is the owner of Game Trays. And so Noah actually created the custom inserts and the vacuum tray inserts in the game. And everything you said about each player has their own little tray, and it makes setup and breakdown a little bit easier and makes your player area a little more pleasant. All that is very, very true. I just try to set expectations, right? And I think Vindication is one of those games that if you were to judge a box by its size and its cover, people may be misled about what type of game it is.
100%.
It comes across as a different style game just by the judging a game by its cover point of view. It comes across as more of a thematic style game. But setting expectations, knowing what you're getting into, I will also say for such a big box, it's actually, especially the basic game, it's actually a very straightforward game. You get 3 actions: move, do something with your people, do something on a tile on a board, done. And I like that. I think that the expansions add a lot, and it allows for more of the variability in play, which is also really cool for such a giant box that you get they kind of break up that formula. It's interesting. I played it with some friends the other night, and they were a little softer on it. It was their first play, but they were kind of like, I don't quite know what to think of this.
See? And that's how I felt after the first play. Exactly.
It's interesting to hear you relate that story from your first play. Ultimately, one of my friends said, well, they just weren't getting the rhythm of the game and the timing of the game. And I think that that's all very fair. And a good example of, well, maybe once you get into it a little bit more and you understand the rhythm, because certainly the more I've played, that flow, very, very straightforward. So, I get to my turn. I know exactly what I want to do. Boom, boom, boom. Move, activate, visit, done. Next turn. Whereas I think the newer players are kind of like, okay, what are my options?
Because there's so many actions, right? Like you've got those.
Well, and then you can do all the color combinations
Right.
and the timing of it. So I get that. Right. So for me, yeah, absolutely. Vindication's really, really pleasant. I think it is a game I will absolutely prefer playing in the physical form over the digital form. Don't get me wrong, the Tabletopia implementation is nice. And of course, it's wonderful that I get to play with people like you, Mandy, that I would not normally get to play with on, say, a Thursday night or whatever. But Vindication is one of those games I would vastly prefer to play in person than in digital.
And my friends said the same thing. My friends who I played with online as well, when another game, they said they liked it. They think they would like it even more in person. And I have to say this. I have to, be nice here. Tom did say that I would like it. And I was like, pshaw, Tom, I don't know what you're talking about. Well, he was right. I enjoyed Vindication.
All right, to wrap it up, Qwixx The Card Game.
Oh, I see a name here that makes me smile.
Qwixx The Card Game. So Qwixx is really at this point one of the central titles in the roll and write category of games. It's really the game that helped generate a lot of energy around this format because it got like the Mensa Select and it's in big box stores, and it just kind of, Qwixx fits that Yahtzee category of games so beautifully with really interesting, fun, engaging gameplay. And I'm a huge fan of Qwixx, which is played with dice. Well, then, just a few months ago, I see Qwixx The Card Game. What? I gotta know, right? I mean, my obsessive collection of roll and writes, I can't leave this one behind. So Qwixx The Card Game is designed by Stefan Bendorf and Reinhard Stope, which are just a wonderful pair. They do great work together. They've created some of the best card games and best roll and write games, small box roll and write games out there. And this one's published by Game Right, which means it's quite affordable and easy to get, which I love. Qwixx The Card Game has player sheets that are basically identical to Qwixx The Dice Game.
Okay.
You've got 4 rows in different colors, red, green, yellow, blue. Some ascend with numbers going 2 through 12, and some descend going 12 down to 2. And the gameplay is very similar as well, where basically you're going to be marking off numbers in these rows from left to right. You just can't ever go backwards. You can skip numbers, but you can't go backwards. So if I mark off the 5, I can never go back and mark off the 4 or the 3 in that row. That kind of thing. You get points for the number of numbers. You get points for the number of numbers. You get points for how many different numbers you can mark off during the game. There are penalties that you can get if you can't mark off something. It's a very simple, straightforward game, and it's great. What does Qwixx The Card Game do differently? Well, it's a card game. Bye-bye dice. Now you have a deck of cards, and it's an interesting deck because it's double-sided. So the back of the cards has a number on it, and the front of the card has the same number on it, but with a color. So the backs are all orange, and then the fronts are different colors. So if you have a card in your hand that's a 6 on the back, you have a 6 maybe blue on the front. And the way the cards work is you will discard cards from your hand to mark off on the board following those same left to right rules. You can discard multiple cards at one time, so you can play 1 to 3 cards. There's some skipping rules. You have to kind of play them in a cluster. Great. And then you draw back up from a tableau because the cards from the deck are laid out. There's 4 available to you. Well, that's super duper interesting because, again, the number is on the back of the card. So when you are refilling your hand, you are selecting what value to put into your hand. What you don't know is you don't know what color it is. So if I need a blue 8 and I see an 8 in the tableau, I'm going to take that 8. Oh, crud, it's yellow. Or, oh yeah, it's blue. Great. You don't know the color. And I think that partial information is so interesting. The other element is that other players are active on your turn as well, because after you refill the tableau, the card that's on top of the deck, everybody can fill in that number if they want to. So you're also kind of hoping on other people's turns, oh, what's going to come up? What's going to come up? Can I take advantage of it? And it's great when you can, and it's a bummer when you can't. That kind of thing. The game also has joker cards or wild cards. And so they're rainbow, and if you get one, you can assign any color to the value of the card. And that's really, really nice, theoretically. But again, Qwixx the Card Game fits within that family, a very light, very simple, pretty straightforward roll and write family style game. I enjoy it. I think the partial information is really, really interesting. It has a different feel than the luck of dice rolling. You kind of feel like you have a greater sense of control, but then I think that kind of exacerbates your disappointment when you don't get what you really, really need. I think it also causes you to kind of hedge your bets a little more and be a little more strategic in giving yourself options when you're drawing from that tableau, which I also think is compelling. I do miss the dice in some way. There's just something energetic about rolling a fistful of dice and wishing and hoping on what comes up. But I think different play styles, different people enjoy different things, and that's okay. The Joker variant, I'm not sure how I feel about it. On one hand, it does add flexibility. Okay, you draw an 8. Oh, look, it's a Joker 8. I can assign any color to it. Great. But what happens when one player gets 4 of them and one player gets none of them during the game, right? It adds this weird luck element because the Jokers are random, because they go in with the rest of the deck. You don't know that they're a Joker. And there's a little unevenness there. I'll be honest, I don't think I'll play with the Joker variant much more anymore. It just didn't feel right. If it all got spread out even Steven, it feels fine. But it doesn't work that way in a random game, right? And as soon as one player starts to go, oh, it's like in Uno, right? It's like getting wilds in Uno. As soon as one player starts getting a lot of those wilds, but you never get one,
right?
It's that same frustration with the Jokers, and I didn't care for it. But on a basic level, Qwixx the Card Game fits within the family, feels great, is fun and quick. I think it's a personal preference whether you'll like this better than Qwixx the Dice Game. Another little roll and write winner from Stefan Bendorf and Reinhard Stope. I mean, we have to have roll and writes in the podcast, Mandy. Come on.
Roll and write and pies, like it's a thing. It's a given. If you're listening to this, episode with us, there's always one or both of those things in the podcast. Brought to you by the Op Games, also known as USAopoly. If you're looking for something that is fun for the whole family and can also be played virtually, then the Blank Slate board game is your best bet. Blank Slate is the clever party game where you try to predict what others are thinking. For ages 8 and up, 3 or more players, and is available for pickup at your favorite toy or game shop or online.
And now let's look at the digital side of board gaming with Tap That App.
All right. Well, this is quite the app we're going to talk about today because I lost horribly, but we'll get into it a little bit more. So Yellow and Yangtze is the app we're going to be discussing today. The game is designed by Rainer Knizia. It's published by Grail Games, but the app is put together by Direwolf Digital. It's available on iOS, Android for $9.99 and on Steam for $14.99.
Yeah. And with Direwolf, I think we've all come to expect a pretty high quality app. It's got 3 levels of AI, the tutorial's built in, it comes in nice clickable chapters, and there is a campaign mode, which is super cool, and we can talk about that a little bit later. For those of you who aren't familiar with Yellow and Yangtze, this is considered a follow-up by Knizia to his classic Tigris and Euphrates. Right. But, instead of squares, you have hexagons now. And of course, there's other differences as well. But if you haven't heard of Yellow and Yangtze, it's in that family for sure. Basically, it's a Knizia game. So there are 5, I don't know what you'd call them, not resources, but types of kingdoms or types of leaders. And your score is the lowest of those 5 for you. So if I have 20 points in red, yellow, green, and blue, but I have 2 points in black, guess what? I got 2 points in that game. Oh, Dr. Knizia, you rapscallion. So in Yellow and Yangtze, you've got a big old board and a bunch of tiles and some big pagoda pieces and some little round leader tokens, 1 in each color. Now, of course, this is in the physical game. In the app, it's all digitized, obviously. And turns out pretty simple. Basically, you can place one of these tiles. You have tiles that represent the 5 colors out there. And you can place a leader on the board as well. You only have 5 of those leaders, and tiles are drawn at random. Ultimately, you want to connect tiles to those leaders that match color, because every time you attach a tile to a leader of the same color, you will get a point. So if I've got my blue leader on the board and then I put a blue tile next to it, boom, point. If I add another blue tile chaining off of that, boom, another point. Ta-da! There is an element where if you get 3 of the same color tiles in a little triangle formation, you can place a pagoda on there. You want pagodas because pagodas will generate a point in that color every turn for the player who has the leader there. And, dun dun dun, pagodas can be stolen.
Yes.
Right, Mandy?
Oh,
right,
yeah.
Mandy?
That didn't go well for me.
There's some variable rules in terms of water. There's blue tiles, they can only be placed on water. If you play a green farmer tile, you get to draw additional new tiles. Yellow serves as wild. And then red is military. Well, why do you need military? In some ways, this is an area control game. And you're going to go to war. Because you basically start off with little governor houses spread out around the board. And you can place tiles and leaders around any one of them. And you kind of start off the game typically, I think, by generating separate little cities. But sooner or later, that board fills up. And then as soon as they connect, boom, you're going to war. And war is really abstract in this game. It's basically you're comparing leaders and you're comparing red tiles. Players can discard red tiles from their hand to boost their numbers. And whoever has the most wins. Other leaders are kicked out. Control is retaken. Yelling occurs at the table. There you go. There's also a little revolt that you can do that's just within a city to gain control and trade control of the tiles or the leader, which you can discard tiles to boost as well. That's the basic battle mechanism in it. Mm-hmm. The tiles are stacked, and once that stack of tiles runs out, the game is over. And like I said, whoever has the highest score in their lowest unit wins. Because it's Dr. Knizia.
Right.
Mandy, what did you think of this one?
Yeah, so I've played the physical version, and I thought I remembered it well enough to play it in the app and win. I did not win. Suzanne took that one home. But overall, I played it on Steam. Let me just throw that out there. And I liked the layout, the way it looked, like when the little pagodas came up. Mm-hmm. And I really liked the visual aspect of the game. Like I could really see how everything was played out, and that it sounds like it's a silly or easy thing, but I like the way they did it. It had a nice flourish to it. I found everything was easy to find. Like if I needed to find out more of a tile, just click on, that tells me what it does. Like I didn't have to go searching for things, which I hate in a game. It's like, make it easy for people to understand. If you're walking us through it, very straightforward. I liked the kind of that layout. Overall, I enjoyed it. I mean, I didn't have a ton to say because I've only played it in Steam, but I liked the look of it. It had a good feel because I've played the physical copy, so it wasn't detracting from that. Like, it wasn't a completely different game. I hadn't played through the tutorial on this one, but I know on a whole, Direwolf Digital does a good job of laying out the games and walking you through how to play. So for me, I quite enjoyed it. I didn't like the last game because I didn't do very well, but I enjoyed it. I do like it.
It's all about those pagodas, Mandy. I control, you let me control too many of the pagodas. That's really what it came down to.
I kept attaching the tile to, and I'm like, let's see what this does. Because I'm one of those people that sometimes I won't read the rules if I think I remember it, just fiddle around with it. Yeah, don't do that. Read the rules in this one because I literally was giving you points.
Right. I think that Direwolf did a great job. The aesthetic elements that you talked about that you enjoyed, it took me a second to adjust because you're used to looking at the leaders in a certain way on a board and the way the wood works and then the tile art. Because what happens is after you place the tile on the board, it converts to an aesthetic presentation. So you place a blue water tile on the water, and instead of that water tile just kind of sitting there looking like, hey, I'm a water tile, it actually grows into a boat or a fish house. And that was actually confusing to me because it's substantively the same thing, no matter what the visual presentation is. It is a blue tile. But Direwolf took advantage of the potential of digital and added life to it. Once you get used to it, that life is wonderful. And Mandi, I think you enjoyed it. But there is a little bit of an adjustment if you've played it physically and then you're like, oh, wait a minute. What's the difference between the boat and the fish house? No, it's the same thing. Oh, okay.
Because the board is so, and I don't mean this in a bad way. It's a lot more plain, so to speak. When you're playing the actual board game, it's not a bad thing. It's very plain. And then when you do the app, it's like, woo, colors and movement and swirly things. Oh my, so it does throw you off a little bit, but I love the way that it looks.
Yeah, and I think the online play worked really, really well when we played against each other. I think the different levels of AI provide a variable level of challenge, which is exactly what you want to see. And I don't know if we've reviewed Yellow and Yangtze, the board game, on the podcast.
Haven't. No, we have not.
The app itself, no, it's a great app. This is a solid, top-tier board game app conversion of a board game. And Mandi, we should talk about Yellow and Yangtze, the game, sometime because, when I entered the hobby, games were a little different 25 years ago or so.
Sure.
And Tigris and Euphrates was just mind-blowing. And it really, everybody I knew played it. We all had copies of it. It was just such a core game in a collection back then. I think I'm just keeping Yellow and Yangtze.
Oh, see, I don't have the original one.
Tigris and Euphrates, right?
No,
yeah.
I don't. Yes, I'm a little wet behind the ears, so I don't have that one. But but yes, Yellow and Yangtze. We'll talk about in detail in another podcast. But yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Ultimately, if you are a fan of Yellow and Yangtze, the app is solid. And if you are not familiar with Yellow and Yangtze, Mandi, maybe you disagree, but I think you could pick up this app and learn the game and enjoy it, even if you hadn't played it in real life.
No, absolutely. And I actually hope, I'm sorry, I have to throw this in here because I literally just discovered this last night. Slay the Spire is on Xbox. Who knew? So, sorry. So basically where I'm going with that is I hope they I think this would be a really cool game on Xbox or Nintendo Switch or something like that. I'm sorry. It's a whole new world for me. I was so excited. So just throwing that out there.
Yeah, hint, hint, Direwolf. Get it on consoles.
Exactly.
Order up!
And now, it's time to order up a slice of game pie.
All right, game pie. This is like a thing now. And then we talked about pie, so now I really want pie, but we're talking about games and pie. Okay. So now we're doing games we like better in digital form. And after we did this episode, I was like, wow, I actually have more that I could add to my list. But we're just going to do these 4-ish ones that I've chosen.
3.14.
Yes, that's right.
3-ish.
3-ish.
And thank you, everybody who has sent messages on social media or through email. We really appreciate your feedback on Game Pie. Somebody definitely, I don't know if you got this message, Mandi, but somebody definitely called us out. Way to work in a top 10 list without doing a top 10 list. I'm like, no.
That's not it at all. At all.
But for sure, keep on sending us your ideas for Game Pie topics and keep on sending us your feedback. It's a new segment. We're playing around with it, and we appreciate all of your comments.
Exactly. Absolutely. All right. First one on my list, and I had to put this at the top because I know that people are going to, give me grief about it, but I start off with Splendor. So Splendor is
Why are people going to give you grief about that?
Because and don't get me wrong. I get it. People like Splendor. I don't love it. In the physical form, I played it and I was like, okay. It's not silly for me. You have some good tableau of cards and, you have your little chips and I like the feeling of the chips. That's nice with the different gems on them and you need them to trade in to get those cards to get points. I get it. Makes sense. Not for me. And then the app, I was like, oh, it's so beautiful. Oh, I like the music. Oh, look at that. It's just great. And I used to have to take the bus to work because, I was working downtown, federal government, all the federal government workers on the bus. And it was like I literally had someone look over my shoulder and they're like, oh, what are you playing? That looks really nice. Like the presentation was nice. And it was something that was, and I have to be careful how I word this. I didn't really have to think too much about it if I lost. It wasn't a big deal. I just, press the thing, push this here. It was great. And it kept me engaged enough that I got to work. Oh, I didn't even notice the time. But to play it in a physical game, I don't know, just doesn't do it for me for some reason.
No, I think that's very, very fair. For me, I think that categorically, and Mandy, I'm peeking at your list. I think this applies in general, but deck builders tend to make great board game apps. If they're done well, they make great board game apps because they remove some of the things about deck builders that might be mildly annoying. Mm-hmm. Well, for me, that means Mystic Vale.
Oh, yeah.
I love Mystic Vale. I've loved Mystic Vale in physical form, and there is something so cool about those transparent cards and how those interact and how you get to shuffle through them, and that you start to do a little bit of metagaming as you feel the card, and you can feel if it's thicker as you go and things like that. But I'll tell you, I have played Mystic Vale so much in app form, and I just love it because there is no setup and there's no cleanup. There's no unsleeving of the cards. The sleeving of the cards when you're playing, I don't mind. I think that's fabulous in physical form. It's the unsleeving at the end of the game that I find annoying.
Yeah, it's tedious.
And guess what? Mystic Vale takes that out in app form. They've done a wonderful, wonderful job supporting the app in terms of expansion content. It plays smoothly online. It's got cool little ambient animations. And you can knock out a game in 6-7 minutes if you know the game and you're playing like really quick.
For sure.
So Mystic Vale, I love the physical game. I actually have most of it, I think, in physical form. And I'm not going to get rid of it anytime soon because there's just something about it that I love. But I really do think I prefer it in digital form.
I do play it more often. I will give you that. Next on my list, as Suzanne was talking about deck builders, is Ascension. So I have actually only played Ascension in the physical form once. And I was like, yeah, I'm good with the app. And then come to find out the app just stopped working. So I'm like, what happened? So I'll be honest. I haven't had a chance to see if it's back on, if I can download it, buy it, whatever the case may be, but it just stopped working. And I know a lot of people really like this game. So if anyone's listening that plays this game, let me know if anything else has come out so I can re-download it to the old Android or iOS, the iPad. So for me, Ascension, again, a deck builder, much preferred in digital form. And I play a lot of it back to back. Like it's quick enough for me to play it back to back.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, another game that I've played a number of times in real life, but I'll be honest, I actually ended up trading this one away in physical form. Sentinels of the Multiverse.
Ah, yes.
Sentinels of the Multiverse is kind of interesting because it's a cooperative game, and I'm not usually a huge fan of cooperative games. But I will say Sentinels was a cooperative game I enjoyed. There was just something about the theme and the way battle worked, and you always felt under pressure. There didn't seem to be a perfect formula, especially with all of the content out there. I really liked it for a cooperative game. But the statistic tracking, the damage tracking, the type of damage that you were taking, so many little tokens and counters, so much to keep track of. It got a little fussy, a little fiddly. Well, flash forward, here comes Sentinels of the Multiverse, the app from Handelabra Games, and it's like reading an interactive comic book. They did such a stylish, fabulous job on the app. They have a ton of content in there. Gameplay is so smooth and easy, and guess what? It keeps track of all of those statistics for you. Not a token in sight. It makes the game come out more often. It lets me play it more often because with Sentinels, it was always do I want to invest the time and do all that energy around that kind of stuff? And with the app, it just makes it a no-brainer. Hey, I feel like playing Sentinels and doing this random matchup, and let's go to it. Bob's your uncle, easy peasy. Sentinels of the Multiverse. I played a ton in digital form. I liked it in physical form, but that app is so sweet.
See, I didn't love it in physical form, but it maybe just been the circumstance I played it because my friends, they absolutely loved it. And I just, maybe I was having an off night, but I would be very curious to try it in digital. So I didn't even know it was available. So there you go. Add it to the list. Look at that.
Yeah.
All right, well, another deck builder, and it should be no surprise that this is on my list, Star Realms. Okay, I can tell you, I think I've played that game more often, way more often in digital form than I have in the card game. I just find, the card scoring cards, and I'm like, oh, this is too much work. And I know I'm being lazy, and it's not really a big deal, but come on, if you've played the physical form and you played the app form, you're going to sit here and tell me that even playing the physical form, you don't use some kind of app to track your score. You do. Tell the truth. Yeah. So for me, Star Realms, I love it, the game itself, so it doesn't matter, but I do get it played much more often in digital form. Absolutely.
I thought about Star Realms because Star Realms I've played in the app form well over 2,000 times.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah. But there's something about the card game. I don't know. That's a tough one. But I get why you love the app because the app is so good.
Oh, absolutely.
Next up for me, my third, and we'll do 3 and a bit, that 3.14,
exactly.
Right, for our game pie today. My third one for today is Onirim. Onirim is one of the Oniverse solo games. Now, you can play it 2-player cooperative, but in general, I always play the Oniverse games solo. I love this series. I just love it. And even seeing Onirim on my list makes me upset because they haven't done the other games in app form. And I'm so sad about that. Onirim is a wonderful, wonderful card game. It's very light and simple as you're going through and you're trying to find keys to unlock these doors and escape your nightmares kind of thing. Oh, there's so much shuffling. There's so much shuffling. Setup for Onirim is actually quite simple. But, you keep on playing shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. Oh, and the deck is thick and the card quality is quite good, but it's actually hard to shuffle. Mm-hmm. And the app is so smooth, so well done. You have the little choices in terms of what expansion plays you can put in. They did a wonderful job on the app. And it's a solo game. So sitting down on your phone and cranking out a quick game of Onirim on your own, there's no difference really as to what you would do with the physical card game in front of you. Obviously, you lose all the physicality and all that other stuff. I understand that downside for sure. But I don't know, honestly, Mandy, if I've played Onirim in physical form since I got the app.
And you know what? You brought up something really interesting, and I never thought about it. I don't play solo games, but I play all my games that are app form solo. I play with the AI, and I prefer it that way. Isn't that interesting?
I do think that's interesting.
And I have this app, but I have not played it yet, so maybe it's one I'll take a look at this weekend.
Ultimately, Onirim kind of tickles that solitaire thing. If you like simple little card games, solitaire, like if you played it on your Windows machine back in school or right, there's just something comforting about the gameplay. I hope you enjoy the app.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to trying that one. All right, well, my 0.14 game is Roll For It. I don't think I need to say much more. Basically, you got the app. I like the fact you can shake, 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 and it rolls your dice. Shake the iPad, shake the phone, roll your dice, place it on the cards. What? And it's just easy to carry. It really is a travel thing for me. And come on, I'm all about shaking the device. Get the dice rolling. Okay, roll for it.
I'm so sad that the podcast is an audio format because Mandy is literally, she doesn't have anything in her hands, but she's just like shaking her body to represent the shaking that she likes and Roll For It. And it just really looks like you're at a bad disco or something. Maybe.
Yeah, it's not so good. So there you go. Roll For It.
Now, see, that's an interesting one because they did a great job with the app. I have no problems. And I've really enjoyed Roll For It playing with my kiddos. Like back when we used to go out to restaurants in the before times. It was such a great little game to play before your meal came together at the table or something like that. But I love rolling dice in real life. And there's just something very tactile that I love.
I get that. I think because this has that shaky thing going on, I think I kind of get the feeling of it, but I know what you mean. But the dice in this one are really small.
Yes, that's also true.
Big, chunky dice to roll. And I also have the really fancy version of it. So, I never want to take it out. I'm afraid someone's going to run off with my tin.
All right. And to wrap it up, Pandemic.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
I will tell you, with much respect to all the fabulous talent that went into this game, and for all the people that adore this game, and for everything that Pandemic has added to the industry, I don't enjoy playing it in physical form.
Oh, nor I.
When I say I don't typically enjoy cooperative games, Pandemic squarely falls into that category. Now, maybe it's just the experiences I've had playing it. Maybe I was playing with the wrong group and I had alpha gamers or what have you, but I just never honestly really enjoyed my physical plays of Pandemic. I don't own a Pandemic game in physical form, except for the most recent one with the dice, which was actually kind of fun. But the app, just like you were saying, I play the app solo.
Yeah.
I play it solo. I give myself a roll. I go through it. And all of a sudden, I like the game.
Interesting.
As a solo puzzle, as you're trying to figure out, okay, where do you want to go? How do you want to fight off this cube spread? The app is very polished and very well done and makes the gameplay easy. And I just sink into it as kind of a video game, almost like a puzzly video game. And that's how I play Pandemic in app form. And so, two totally different experiences. Pandemic, the board game, thanks, let's try something else. Pandemic, the digital app, I love it. And will play it quite often, quite frankly.
It's funny, I have it. I haven't played it yet. Now, I also don't own a Pandemic. Pandemic's just not a game for me. I've had great teachers. Eric taught me one. I think it was a Rising Tide or something along those lines. And Sen Foon Lim did one, the Cthulhu version. And honestly, they were wonderful. They taught it well. You know, they really got me in the mood, but just it wasn't a game for me. So now I'm curious, are you saying that you liked it as an app, if I should give it a go? Maybe it's like a Splendor for me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't care for the physical, but might like it
It
here.
very well might. I mean, it's worth a try.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, there you go. Some slices of games that we prefer in digital form. Let us know what games you prefer in digital form. Or do you think we're completely off base and you're screaming at us right now going, how could you not like Pandemic in physical form? Feel free to let us know. If you have a topic idea for a future Game Pie, let us know that too. You can always reach out to us on our various social media accounts, or you can always send us an email. You can reach me at Suzanne@dicetower.com.
And you can reach me at Mandi, that's Mandi with an I, at dicetower.com.
As always, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Dice Tower podcast. It is an honor and privilege and pleasure to be able to be part of your extended gaming family. Next episode, 659, Tom and Eric are going to pick up the pace with their top 10 racing games. Until next time, I'm Suzanne Sheldon.
And I'm Mandi Hutchinson.
And you've been listening to The Dice Tower.
Thanks for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This podcast is sponsored by listeners like you. Thank you for your continued support. And speaking of support, the Jack Basil Memorial Fund is an organization dedicated to helping gamers in need. Learn more about the fund's mission and how you can help at jackbasil.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom, Suzanne, Mandi, and Eric with assistance from Roy Canaday and Rob Searing. Our theme is composed by Timothy Pinkham and arranged by Matt Bellier, and hosting is provided by Cool Stuff Inc. Let us know what you think of the show by posting to the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com, following the Dice Tower on Twitter, or by emailing us at dicetower@gmail.com. And don't forget to visit the other shows in the Dice Tower Network at dicetowernetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming. All right, everyone, it is that time again for Two Truths and a Lie. So let me start off with the ones from last episode. I own 10 or more Tea Turtle shirts. I own 10 or more concert shirts. I own 10 or more comic or series shirts. If you said that I own 10 or more Tea Turtle shirts was the lie, that would be correct. I have a few, but not 10 or more. All the other ones I do because I work with a lot of people in the industry, so I get a lot of that stuff for free.
I might have 10 or more Tea Turtle shirts.
Oh, look at that.
I love them.
What about you, Suze?
Last episode, I said I love Lily of the Valley, I love hydrangea, and I love roses. And the lie is that I love roses.
Really?
Yeah, they're a little extra for me. I love Lily of the Valley, so these cute little tiny bellflowers, and hydrangeas are like one of my favorites. I just love the season that we're going into where hydrangeas are all pretty and blossoming.
Very cool. I feel like you had Animal Crossing in mind when you did that one.
I may have.
All right, and new up for this episode, I cross-stitch, I basket weave, and I crochet.
And for me this episode, I have over 200 iOS board game apps. I have over 100 cookie cutters, and I have over 300 embroidery thread skeins.
Oh my goodness, some crafty stuff this week. Good luck, everyone.